Never mind.
On the custom live stream, does it open up?
Hold on, we're live. We're
Yeah,
going live.
when I
My bad. Oh, I have to do that again.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Okay,
Third time is the charm. Right?
This
Third
will
time.
be perfection.
we are live. Welcome everyone to Plotlines. This is the first time I'm going live, and I'm actually going live now.
It's actually the
After
third time.
The third time trying to go live. Now I'm actually live. So welcome. If you like what we're doing here at Plotlines, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Join our Discord. That link is in the description. And if you want to support the channel, please, if you want to buy a rosary, please buy Bishop Sheen rosaries. A link to them is in the description. And if you use the code Plotlines10, you get 10% off. So we are here to discuss the Midwest, Catholicism in the Midwest, and sort of generally where we see things going, or, are we in decline? Are we growing? What's happening? Anyways, I have my fellow Midwesterners with me. So I am from Illinois. I am the closest thing to being near Babylon, I think, of all of us, because Chicago is the Babylon probably of the Midwest. So I have Rob from Avoiding Babylon with me. I have Jeremiah Bannister, the Paleocrat here. He is also from The Meaning of Catholic. I have Jake from himself. He is, he's like the Madonna of YouTube. He doesn't have a last name. And Angela Erickson from Integrated with Angela Erickson. She is also on Relevant Radio as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just do a pro-life radio show for a local Relevant Radio affiliate, and then I'm a contributor on Morning Air, and I've been on a couple of the other shows. But yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're just going to be chilling and talking about the Midwest. I think, first of all, it would be good to know what the Midwest is. So, Jeremiah, what do you consider the Midwest?
What do I consider the Midwest?
Yeah, what states?
So I cheated. I actually went and I looked up to make sure that I had the right ones, because I didn't want to get stuff from wrong states. Illinois, Nebraska, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Kansas.
Wait, did you say Ohio, or am I?
Unfortunately, yes, I did say Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm a Michigander, man. I'm a Wolverine. I may have said Ohio. Like, I may have done that. That's just a natural thing. But yeah, Ohio is included in the Midwest.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Nebraska. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought Nebraska necessarily.
As someone who went to the University of Nebraska, they don't really consider themselves Midwest.
What do they consider themselves?
Great Plains.
That's what I would have thought. But does anybody else have any gripes with that list or anything?
I don't.
No.
No, I used to coordinate a 5-state area. I will say this about especially the upper Midwest. It's probably the most boring part of the country. Just hours of driving through cornfields in some areas. So anyway, that's my only gripe really with this part of the country.
Yeah, like
I enjoy the cornfield.
You enjoy the cornfield?
I do. There's
Really?
something about driving through, not like I-35 through Iowa, but
It's
like
so
if you get off
boring.
the beaten road and you just go drive through Iowa.
Well,
See, like-
parts of Wisconsin are beautiful.
Oh yeah.
So beautiful. But yeah, I can't do Iowa. I don't know.
You
what is
can't
wrong
do
with you.
Iowa.
It's part of my dad was from Iowa, Mom's from Minnesota. I lived in Minnesota, and now I'm in Kansas, but I don't know, probably that would be going down to Iowa so frequently. I'm just so
Yeah.
used to it, and it's just maybe nostalgic. Other than that, it has no useful purpose for me.
What's Kansas
the whole
part
state.
The whole
The whole
state.
state.
It's
It's
like
That
this
drive through 35 is the worst.
It's
just
corn
drive
and
through-
windmills. Corn
Yeah,
and windmills. That's
windmills, nothing else. It is just, that's all. I mean,
There's
so boring.
soybeans and
Agree with that.
alfalfa and
There's-
hay and
we
stuff.
have lots of
time to
wheat.
time.
Okay. Yes. So what is Kansas though? Where is Kansas? What group is that Kansas in? Just
Great
curious.
Plains.
No,
Plains?
they-
Okay.
they're
It's still Midwest.
Yeah.
It's still
Oh, okay.
Midwest.
They were listed in Jeremiah's listing.
Yeah.
I can't-
That was just Wikipedia, I think, and we all know Wikipedia is a little bit fake news, right? So I mean,
It can
you
be
know,
altered,
obviously, it can
except
be.
for when it can't.
Some middle schooler probably did it for a project for school.
Yeah.
Wanted to throw off all these adults.
Yeah.
But then the administrators are like, it has to stay.
Good
Yeah.
work, kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for whoever put together that
That
Midwestern,
Wikipedia
yeah,
page.
that Wikipedia. But yeah, so all of us here are practicing Catholics, so we are all, you know, pushing through in very difficult times. I would say, just being Catholic, I think, is genuinely a difficult thing at the moment. Would you guys all agree?
In some respects, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
In some.
In some, I would agree with that. In some,
I mean, yeah.
There was a while
so,
there I considered leaving. I was looking very seriously at Judaism.
Really? Why? Curious.
Well, because I knew Protestantism was false. And then it made me think, well, I do believe in a God. I know God exists. So then I have to look at the three monotheistic religions, and the only one I could take with any, really take seriously somewhat would be Judaism, because then my question became, well, maybe Christ really wasn't the Messiah. That's the only way I could explain anything else. I was like, yeah, Islam is definitely fake. So I just felt like through a series of deductions, that was like all I was left with. So I just, that was the only place I really looked at with any real scrutiny, but resolved to stay Catholic.
Yeah.
And I did leave. Yeah.
You
yeah.
you've gone through many different phases.
In fairness, it's like one of those things: Protestant, Catholic, atheist. That's really technically all. It's only a lot because there are subsections, right? So
Yeah,
like
what
you've got, I was raised Pentecostal, but then I became a Calvinist. So I was a Calvinist, and then there's like schools of thought in that. So I was different schools of thought within Calvinism. And I was I guess when I was with my dad, like I grew up, we were Pentecostal, but we were also kind of into like Hebraic roots and Messianic Judaism. So I have my passport, I have a yarmulke on. Like I've got like the long hair on the sides, like the doolies. I wasn't wearing any tzitzit, but I had a prayer shawl. So I had all that. I went to Messianic synagogue for when I was in college, I went for probably 2 semesters. And so I was
Played the
really into that.
shofar.
Dude, I owned a shofar straight up, dude. So like, I know at the beginning of my show, I joke about people blasting a shofar. Your boy here really was blasting shofars. So I was like the 8th grade kid with a shofar in my briefcase. But no, I then left and became a Catholic. But then while a Catholic, my last year identifying at all with Catholicism, I was a sedevacantist. So that's the debate as to are they not? What are they? But I was so Pentecostal, Calvinist, Catholic, and then subdivided, and then atheist, and then I was an atheist for 7 years though. So I mean, it wasn't like I only this past year overcame the amount of time. So I've been a Catholic for over 8, which has surpassed my time as an atheist. So I'm quite happy, in fact, about this.
Over 8 with combining the time?
Combining them, yeah.
Okay.
So like the total of my time as a Catholic has been 8 years.
Okay. When did you come back into the church, or when did you come back to the faith?
Christmas Eve of 2017. And so I say that because people say, well, that's 5 years. And you're like, it's Christmas Eve of 2017. It's like, you only have a handful of days, man. And it's 2018. So yeah, so I Christmas Eve. And I came into the church. Well, I decided to become a Catholic at a Christmas Eve mass in, I think 2005, 2006. That's when I decided I was at a Christmas Eve, a Christmas vigil. And then I would go, even when I was an atheist, I'd go to Christmas Eve mass or divine liturgy secretly, right? I'd go by myself, and it's kind of a weird thing. Some of my friends knew, and they thought I was a weirdo, because it is strange. And then came back Christmas Eve 2017.
Gotcha. Thank God for you coming back.
Yes, man. Yeah, it was understatement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting about the Midwest, I would say, because our people are passive aggressive.
What are you talking about? Minnesota is nice.
Which means
Well,
passive aggressive.
Yeah, which
Exactly.
means
Yeah,
passive
yeah.
aggressive.
Yeah.
I feel like driving in Kansas has hardened my heart, and instead of being the passive aggressive driver that I was in Minnesota, now I go and I
Pure
drive into
aggressive.
Minnesota. I'm like, get these morons out of my doggone way.
Yeah.
You're aggressive.
Not quite, but
Okay, so just
we have changed.
well, okay. Jake
Yeah,
has evolved.
He doesn't shake his fist at the drivers anymore and like yell terrible words at them. He's like, I hope you have a great day. He's like really like,
Hey, that's
But
not a joke.
progress.
I pulled that for Lent one year. It was just like every time I felt upset while driving, I would pray Hail Mary immediately. And I prayed a lot of Hail Marys at Lent because
Instead
I
of
had like an hour and a half commute through the city.
you
Instead of,
growled them. You growled
passively
them at
aggressive.
first. Yeah.
he became
But you-
aggressively passive.
Yeah.
Aggressively passive.
Yeah.
That's great. Aggressively passive. But Angela, would you say you're experiencing all the passive aggressiveness in Minnesota?
Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. I will say this much. I have never totally fit in here because I'm not passive aggressive enough. And so often, and especially in my work, I've been accused of being too direct with people because I just really like things being clear and precise. Because obviously miscommunication is the biggest reason projects aren't accomplished. That's one of the biggest problems. So that has been leveled against me more times than I can count. And in fact, one organization that I worked for, my bosses actually asked me to start putting smiley faces in my emails because I was so direct. And they
That's
actually were
hilarious.
on the East Coast. I was like, seriously, you guys are in Virginia. You guys are ruthless out here. Okay. I think you should be able to handle this little Minnesotan telling you, like, I just want to know what's going on. I'm not even being mean, but I
That's
guess
hilarious.
it was too much. I guess I don't know.
I think being direct is too much for being a Midwesterner to some degree.
It really is. Yeah.
It's like dangerous, and I'm also very direct. So it's sort of.
I don't mean to be combative. You know, it's like
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not really being combative. I like to be clear. I don't know. I guess that's a problem.
Well, the thing about passive aggressive tends to be, oh, you're nice, but you're not kind.
Well, yeah, not behind your back, especially. Yeah. It's
But yeah, like charity is the thing that's actually like with all the appearance of being a good person, it just
Right.
becomes brutal.
Yeah, well, and it's, at least when you're in the South and say, "Oh, bless your heart," you know what they're thinking. We
Yeah.
don't have anything like that in the Midwest, really, except for maybe, "Oh, I suppose."
That-
I suppose.
I think
Yeah,
that's just Minnesota.
no. Yeah.
Or
No,
ju-
yeah,
just-
or yeah, no.
Just
Yes.
Nope.
Yes.
Well, let me just squeeze past you there and
Yep.
grab some
Yeah.
ranch.
Well,
But- or
watch
the
out,
almost-
watch out there.
Or the almost inaudible. Excuse me.
What, Jeremiah? What's the Michigan phrases?
Michigan phrases.
Are there any specific
You know,
phrases?
Michigander
Well,
talk.
It's weird.
Michigander
Well,
talk.
maybe it's kind of there definitely is because you can do a test that predicts where you are
Mhm.
and where you like your
Yep.
family, where they've come from, and it's pretty close. I think it's more the way we pronounce things. Like I think a lot of the things we say bless your heart, but that's because my family is originally from Tennessee. So so a lot of that kind of stuff kind of finds its way in. But I think it's the way we pronounce things. When I went to school it was only one semester, but I was in Vancouver, Canada, right outside. And we went to go ask for directions at this bar. And they were like, oh, we know where you're from. Hold on. And there's like 4 or 5 of these guys, and they were all guessing, and it was Michigan or Illinois. And I'm like, well, are you serious? But they asked me to say certain words. God, mom. So like ma, that nasally thing that you don't realize you do. And they're like, it's mom. And I'm like, mom.
Mom.
And I'm like, ugh,
Mom.
dollar hockey. That's real bad. Hockey. I'm going to the hockey game. Like, so that sort of thing really stands out. But as for certain phrases, I'm sure there are many. But I've traveled all over, so I kind of get it mixed up. I'm a hodgepodge of phrases from different places, but
Gotcha.
really the accent though.
That's-
Mhm.
Do the Yoopers talk differently than
Yes. The Uber, yeah,
He just goes, yes.
well, it's true, man. They do. They sound like the people that when I would go to Minnesota,
I was gonna say.
they have that kind of accent.
There are a lot
of Finns,
Minute-
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
there are a
yeah.
lot of Finns. I graduated and grew up with a lot of Finns. My husband is a Finn, technically. I mean, he has a lot of that Scandinavian in him. I mean, for goodness sake, his name is Lars. Bjorn
Lars, I was gonna like,
Erickson.
yeah, Lars Erickson. I mean,
Yeah,
come on
you
now.
just don't get any more than that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but when I was in college, it's so funny you talk about that you know, your accent being so strong, because when I was in college, I remember being in a 8 a.m. theology class and reading the gospel of Jesus in the boat, one of them. And the boat, exactly. So one of my classmates who's from California, he caught me after class and he said, I almost couldn't keep it together because my O's are so long.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know when I came to Kansas, I didn't know I had an accent. Like I came to Kansas for college and people were making fun of me. And I was just like, for what reason? Like, you have an accent. I'm like, no, I do not. I don't.
yeah.
And it took a while to get over that. And I tried to curb it a little bit, but it just, every time I went back home to visit my folks, it come back down and it's there.
Someone's calling
Yeah.
us crypto Canucks.
Wow. I would say Illinois, at least regarding suburban Illinoisans, it is the standard, or the accent is the standard use for Hollywood, basically. But, I mean, they mirror it off because it's sort of easy to, I don't know. It's easy for everyone else to understand, probably. Would you guys say that? You guys, Angela has all the kids
I
everywhere.
do. Sorry.
They're just all over the place.
I could hear her cooing at you guys, and so I knew she was probably smiling. She thinks you're talking to her.
Well, I mean,
That's fantastic.
you're right there. She's right there. How are we not talking to
Sure. Say hi, Veronica.
her? Aw, so
Hi.
cute.
Oh, it's adorable. Yes.
Okay, I got one. Because I'm going through this list. It's like, oh, this is the best list of Michigan slang. No, it is not. This is lying. They're like, oh, chook or choppers. What are you talking about? Well, choppers.
Choppers are gloves.
Yeah. No, it's helicopters. I don't.
Yeah.
We're talking about
Well,
deer.
yeah, it's a helicopter too.
Okay, yeah, but so okay, there is one on here. For one,
Choppers are pretty nice on the hands, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
Just,
Party-
oh.
party store. Like we'll say, yeah, I'm going to the party store. It's
What is
called-
that?
Party
Is it-
City.
It's
Party
convenience
City.
store.
Yeah.
Oh, convenience
Yeah,
store?
because a convenience store. Like, we're like, so it tells you what we think is awesome and like what's going to really liven the day. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going up to the gas station on the corner, like the party store. Yeah. No. So
Hey.
the party
Oh,
store.
I can't.
You're in the middle of Iowa, and I'm telling you what, you see a convenience store or a gas station,
it
and
is a
that's the only
party.
thing you got in town. And yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Pop.
it's that we're going down to the gas station because
Pop.
I want to pop.
Yeah.
Well,
I
where
wanna
I'm from,
pop,
you'd
yeah.
say going up to Kirk's.
Oh, pop.
Whoever
Wait,
owns the gas station, that's where you're going.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, for me, it's soda.
That's because you're wrong, Connor.
Yeah.
Apparently, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's the city, Illinois, the Babylon part of the culture there. But you know that,
At least none of us call water fountains bubblers, right?
No.
yeah,
That's
that's
just
only
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
That's weird.
They're scuttlebutts.
If we'd
What?
gotten someone from
It's the
Wisconsin,
Navy phrase, dude.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm going. I need to go visit the scuttlebutt real quick. Nobody does that. No.
why is that? Where did that come from?
I don't know the history of that, believe it or not, but it is a phrase in the Navy that you have to like learn. And they're like, well, it's kind of like when you say, you know, you're talking around you're a scuttlebutt. is also like I've heard people use that phrase when talking about gossip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like-
that's
like-
because you're gossiping around.
like a
Around
water
the water
cooler.
cooler. Oh,
Yeah.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the other one's kitty
Interesting.
corner. And I
Yeah.
say that kitty corner, KITTY.
I've used
Yeah.
kitty corner as well.
Yeah.
Kitty corner is the way to go.
It is the way. Yeah.
I hate it when people say
Yep.
cat corner.
Cat
the
corner.
heck?
I know.
That's what Kansas did. I came down here and like my whole wife's side of the family, I was like talking about the neighbor across the street who's kitty corner from.
Kitty
And they all
corner.
stopped and looked at me and they were like, "What did you say?" I was like, "Kitty corner, kitty wampus, something like that, you know?" They're like, "You
What?
mean catty corner, catty
a
wampus?" I'm
wampus?
like, "No." You know, if you're like on a seesaw, it's like kitty wampus. It's not
It's not
level.
level.
Kitty wampus.
I've never heard.
That's
a
word of the day today, bro. Like that is all of us.
Wampus.
Yeah. I didn't know that either.
I've never
It's-
heard.
It's in the
wamp-
dictionary. Look it up.
I mean,
What, say it again.
Look it up on Wikipedia, please.
Say
is
it
kitty
wampus-
kitty wampus.
is wampus not? I thought it was like a fictional, like
No, it's a real
fictional creature or something.
No, this isn't. This
That's,
isn't like a Star Wars thing.
It's not?
Disorganized, poorly done, chaotic.
You're thinking
Yeah.
Krampus.
Kitty wampus.
Thinking-
Krampus.
What?
Krampus. I don't know what you're talking about.
Kitty Wampus is
Yeah.
not Krampus.
Oh.
No, wasn't the white monster in Star Wars like a wampa or something like that?
Well, there's
Yeah.
a womp rat.
Well, that too. See,
We're
so
really
it's
getting
just
off the
weird,
rails.
out of place things. Kitty wampus. All right,
So really, wampus is derived from Star Wars.
I have no idea, man.
No, it's not. That's probably not at all true. It's just, yeah. Anyways, the Midwest and the church.
Hey,
So how? Let's stick with the Minnesotans for a bit. Are
Yeah,
you guys
Anthony's gonna love that.
are you guys optimistic with the current status of the church in Minnesota?
Rob, I'll defer to you first.
Oh, so I'm up in far northern Minnesota. We just got a new bishop about a year and a half ago. The previous bishop had a heart attack at a pretty young age and died.
Oh wow.
I hear he was very good, and a lot of people were very
My
sad.
mom went to school with him. They were
Bishop
very
Serba?
good friends. Yep.
What?
So
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
so we're all kind of still getting to know our current Bishop Felton. But there's some good things happening in the diocese up here. But there's also, kind of the general decline that's going on everywhere else too. Outside of the basically one larger city up here, which is Duluth, outside of that city, the smaller towns may or may not have a parish. Parishes have closed or have consolidated. And if you go to your average, smaller town parish up here, I would say 75% of the attendance is 50 years old or older. But overall there are some really good parishes with some good schools. So it's hard to say. I think the next 10 years is going to decide a lot.
Gotcha. So really not much like nothing out of the ordinary where you are.
No, nothing really out of the ordinary. I would say it's, a pretty similar story to a lot of places across the country from what I've heard of anyways.
Angela, what do you have to add?
Yeah, well, I'm in the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis, and it's a different animal. We have some really crazy, outrageous parishes like St. Joan of Arc and I believe Minneapolis. But, and that one is they have masks that they wear and like weird stuff. Hosting yoga sessions and all kinds of stuff within the church. But then you have like the FSSP in Minneapolis as well, and a Maronite church right down the block, along with the Byzantine church and a Ukrainian church. Like there is a lot of orthodoxy in Minneapolis. And Archbishop Hebda kind of, even when Traditionis Custodes came out, he kind of took a sit back and wait approach, which I actually really appreciated. I wasn't sure how he would handle it as someone coming from Philadelphia. But he actually, from my understanding of people that I've talked to, is he kind of padded the numbers when he reported to the Vatican, like how many people were celebrating the TLM, so that if some priests wanted to, there was some like room for that, basically, because he knows we're a diocese that is in bankruptcy. Like
Oh,
Yeah.
we
yeah.
filed for bankruptcy years ago because we had our own sex scandals here. And
Yeah.
even the St. Cloud Diocese, where I went to school, they have their own sex abuse scandals. Even I think I mentioned it a little bit last night on the live that we did on my channel, but the priest at the Newman Center that I was going to is in jail now for a sex scandal. And one that was going on while I was in school there. So they have so many problems. They can't afford literally to alienate all of their traditionalists because they're the ones that are having the families and bringing in the
Mhm.
money. So I have some respect for Archbishop Hebda. He has not really brought the hammer down really on traditionalism, which gives me some hope. But we do have Bishop Barron moving into the Winona area in the
That's,
Rochester
I forgot
Diocese.
about that. That's right.
Yes. Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing. And there's a lot of speculation, obviously, as to why he was moved from Los Angeles down to a relatively obscure diocese here in Minnesota. And I
It,
mean, I
it-
don't, yeah,
it's
I don't
obscure,
know.
but it was
Yeah.
also where the SSPX seminary was for many years.
That's
Mm.
true. Yeah. So
I
Minnesota's weird. I feel like Minnesota's a weird state.
I would think that it was a punishment. That's my thought process.
But wasn't
With-
it actually a raise in a way? Like he was auxiliary, wasn't he before?
Yeah,
Yes.
but going
Yeah.
from LA to like a small diocese in Minnesota just seems to me like a bit of, can we get rid of you or send you in a
Yeah,
place
there
that
are
we
f-
won't hear from you necessarily as much.
There are a few theories that I've heard, and I'm not sure which one I agree with the most yet. One being a punishment for being too traditional, according to Pope Francis. Another one being that this would elevate him in terms of his position while giving him enough time to continue his own apostolate with Word on Fire. Whereas he just wouldn't have the same flexibility in his own and in the Los Angeles diocese. So that's another option. And another one could be to try and kind of put them away after some of the scandals that they've had with their own staff. So I'm not sure what exactly is what the crux of the issue is. But there's no doubt in my mind that he will bring he brings a different dynamic to what's going on in Minnesota. That's for sure.
Yeah. Also, an independence, I think, for him might
Yes.
allow us to see a little more about him. He was the rector at Mundelein, so
Mhm.
he's had a lot of influence over the Midwest for a long time, and he had sort of mostly made Mundelein Orthodox again after under Cardinal George, and then he was shipped off, which to me also could have been maybe Supage didn't want him around either,
Mm.
and that's why he was moved to LA. But I don't know, that's really all speculation. But he is quite important, so it would be interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see what he does in his own diocese with full full control over his diocese.
Mhm.
And he does my understanding is he's often known to celebrate more traditional liturgies.
Really,
Even
that actually kind of, I don't know why I'm surprised by that, but
like,
I'm
even if it's
I'm a
not the
little
Latin
surprised
mass,
by that.
even if it's not Latin mass, I've seen like pictures of him celebrating mass ad orientem and at good altars and stuff like that. So I don't know how often that is, but I know it has happened in the past. So he may be in the category of too traditional for Pope Francis. He may be being promoted. I don't know. He might toe the line. I don't really. There's a lot of different options that his story could go in different ways.
For sure. And I will say too, even about Archbishop Hebda, I mean, there are some things that I haven't loved about some of the decisions that he's made here, but he's also been very supportive of pro-life work. I mean, I spoke at a rally the day that the Dobbs decision came down, and he made an effort to come and say prayer during the rally, which I appreciated because I think he had something else going on that day too. So yeah, I mean, he's been very pro-life and outspoken about that, which in a state like Minnesota, where we basically have abortion on demand, we just undid all of the laws on the books right now. It's a free for all. Even freestanding abortion clinics can now do abortions up to not through 9 months of pregnancy here, and they don't have to be a doctor. It can be any medical professional. They are not licensed and inspected. I mean, it's intense here. We're like kind of the abortion black hole of the Midwest. So I was really grateful that he came out and prayed with us.
I thought Illinois was the black hole of abortion.
No, Minnesota, actually, the Planned Parenthood in St. Paul has the largest abortion volume in the country.
What's Illinois at? Because we also recently just made abortion more available.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I just know that virtually every state around Minnesota will have major restrictions if they don't already on abortion since the Dobbs decision came down. So we already had the largest volume of abortions in Minnesota, and that's only going up now because these other states we're basically a destination state for abortion now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Minnesota doesn't actually touch Illinois, so I guess that makes
Right.
sense. Because Illinois is kind of the same thing for its neighbors. It is also a destination. There are a lot of people coming from Missouri into Illinois, and maybe probably Indiana and Wisconsin and stuff like that. But that
and the vote on Kansas stuff this past.
That was so
Tuesday.
disappointing.
Oh yeah. See,
That was
I looked at
very
briefly.
hard just watching that.
I read briefly like the yes or no, and to me it was kind of confusing the way they presented it.
Yeah.
Also, people just vote no on things. That's literally
they vote no, but my wife was a lot more in tune with it and involved with it because she's in a lot of mothers groups and stuff like that, and it was just constant misinformation, propaganda. Like if you vote yes for this thing, then ectopic pregnancies, all the things that all the very rare situations, and it was really bad how it was presented to people, and a lot of people came out of the woodworks on both sides, Republican, Democrat, didn't matter who, and it wasn't pretty. That was painful to watch all that go down.
Well, and it's frustrating here too, like just because we were watching that here in Minnesota and hoping to look towards something that we could maybe replicate here, because the way that the law
Right.
was written there in Kansas was similar to the Texas law that
I think it's 20 weeks, up to 20 weeks.
I can't
in
remember what
Kansas.
it was in Kansas, but the way it was written was similar to Texas. But yeah, the thing that's frustrating too, even like here, we just had our annual abortion report released, and in 2021, 5 babies were born alive and were not given care when they should have been. They were maybe given comfort care or whatever here in Minnesota. And it's like, we're opening up the door for abortion on demand without any restriction, no parental consent, no nothing. And you're going to have more of these babies born alive. You have more people like just doing the most depraved things, and there will be zero oversight whatsoever. So we were looking to that as kind of a goal to see if that would work there, then maybe we could attempt to replicate it here. And so it was really, really frustrating because those lies about the ectopic pregnancy, it's just so dishonest. Either these people are
It's very
willing,
dishonest.
either they're really that ignorant, or these doctors are playing politics with women's lives, which is absolutely disgusting.
This is why I despise democracy on every level, because the people are incredibly ignorant anyways, or easily swayed, even though they could, if you ask them to pull the same question, they'd come out completely different. Like if you ask
Yeah.
them what they believe, they'll
Yeah.
tell you what they believe, but then they won't necessarily vote that way. even if they said they would vote that way, or, they come back and say, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. Like it's the, just the wild nature of it. But yeah, so that's what's happening in Minnesota. Also, you have Father Mike Schmitz as well in Minnesota.
Yeah, and Jeff Cavins. Yep.
Yeah,
Jeff
so
Cavins actually lives like 25 minutes away from me.
oh, okay. You guys
Yeah.
should hang out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so is that sort of at least a light having Father Mike Schmitz? I know his like videos or his masses are not the most like beautiful or anything. I think he probably was given, or his Newman Center doesn't have a very nice chapel or whatever, but he, the work he does is very powerful and very influential and very orthodox as well.
Yeah, and I will add too, even with Jeff Cavins, he started. So I think the St. John Vianney Seminary, that's associated with the University of St. Thomas, is excellent. They're actually turning out a lot of pretty orthodox priests right now, and as along with that, Jeff Cavins, he started what's called the Catechetical Institute. And so they have programs every year going through the entire catechism. I went through it, and yeah, some people are going to be upset. It's not like the old Baltimore catechism or anything. It is the newer catechism, but I just think it's amazing that you have hundreds of Catholics every semester signed up to learn the catechism of the Catholic Church. And it was really formative for me too. There's no way I would have ever read through the entire catechism had I not taken that class. So there's definitely a lot of really good stuff going on despite the politics.
Is it the the catechism before Francis changed it, or is it?
Yeah. So when I went through it, it was. I don't know if it's the updated version or not.
If they do the updated one, I cannot imagine how, the conversation that will come with the changes, because they contradict themselves. But I really want to get to Jeremiah about his experience in Michigan. So what is the status of the church in Michigan, in your opinion?
I don't think it's much different than what you'd have in other states in the Midwest. I think it's very similar to that. On the one hand, there's a lot of reasons to be bummed. On the one hand, right, to see things that you wish were different. And yet at the same time, I kind of look at those things like I'm the optimist guy, right? Like my eschatology, my view of the end is triumphant. So I don't take a view that's like the Catholic version of Left Behind, that it's like doom and gloom and it's all going to end real soon. Like I'm not that guy. So I'm very much on the march and believing that we are progressively getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that in fact it's a triumphant and very exciting thing, with a small time of fallout. So like I look at these opportunities like this, and I guess just to phrase it that way, that even the negative things, that it helps us to see the problems. Like you can go on even Pew Research, right, going on and saying, well, what are the things that are really bad? What are the things that are encouraging? For one, it's encouraging that even in a bad time like this, that it's about 20 to 22% in the Midwest still identify as Catholic. And in almost all the Midwest, that it's Catholic. That's the largest church. There's other places, Tennessee and other states, where you would have, or other parts of the country where it would not be the case. But in the Midwest, that's just true. So at least in self-identity, we're still there. And not only that, but I think sometimes we think that it's just older people going to church. 26% are Gen X, 21% are millennial. So just there alone, you're at 47%
Yep.
of self-identified Catholic people are Gen X, my age or younger. So I think that's a positive thing. I think sometimes we forget that. That's almost 70% of them believe in God absolutely or certainly. Now they may be wrong about it, and we see why, right? So if you go down in the numbers, 41% say at least once a week. It's probably inflated, right? The ideal, at least once a week. Yeah, I think it's me. So let's even say 35. You're still doing okay, right? I mean, it's bad, but it shows you what you need to work on. Prayer, not even around half of them claim to do it daily. Okay, so that's the rest. 23% says weekly, 7% monthly, 11% seldom. Prayer, 51% in education groups, 51% say that they seldom to never pray. 65% say they seldom to never are involved in any kind of educational group. That, I think, is the core. They're not frequenting the mass. They're not even going. So it's not that the church doesn't do anything, right? And so, like, just as Angela said, like, it's kind of surprising actually to see that many people at this catechism thing. And you're like, that's a lot of people for that one, but there's tons of people who go to none. And then a lot of people who do go to churches where they're very active and stuff, they treat it as if the church itself isn't providing that. Dioceses all around are probably providing it. But the last one is the standards of right and wrong, scripture, stuff like that. Source of morals, religion, 32%. Philosophy is 10. Common sense, 47. So and I don't think that they even know what it means by, they're not talking common sense probably in the same way that the apostle of common sense, G.K. Chesterton, was describing, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's what they're saying. So common sense, 47%. They're not getting it from religion. They're not getting it from philosophy. Standards of right and wrong, only 33% say that there are clear standards. 65 say it's situational. And the last thing I'll mention is scripture, because the afterlife, 88% believe that's good. Hell, only 65%, but you're still bumping close to 70. So you're
Yeah,
still
that's
doing
not
good.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got, but scripture, seldom to never, 54%, and 25 do not even believe it's the word of God. So you say, okay, prayer, people aren't praying. And the saints would say that's kind of the core of all of it. They'd say, if you stop praying, and especially mental prayer, if you stop doing that, you're toast. So, because that's the most intimate, personal part of it, not just the downloading in the brain stuff.
Yeah.
But so prayer, obviously, morals, teaching about where do we get morals from, the idea of attending church or frequenting sacraments at all, those things. But the belief is there. And that's why the last thing I'll say about it, I'm actually relieved that in the Midwest, we still, because I go to all different kinds of churches, and I see some churches where I'm like, if I was Pope, I wouldn't allow that, right? That kind of thing. There's plenty of that, but there's not. I've never, in all of my time going to masses, and we go to a lot of them just to experience them, never seen a clown mass, never seen a roller skate mass, never seen a bubble mass, never seen where gay ballet dancers are up on the altar. Those are things that mass media allows us to see because we have access to these things that, it's a different universe when you can see something from a long ways away. But I look at that and I say, of all these different places, I'm grateful to still see the reluctant attendee. And I know it's weird to say, or the Creaster Christian, right? The one that shows up on Christmas and Easter, but never any other time. I'm actually relieved and delighted to see them. Not just because I think they should be there, but because it says something about society and about Catholicism right now, that we still have the ability to pressure outside of the walls of the church, to pressure our family that they feel compelled once a year, even against their desires, to put on that suit and tie and to go to mass and hear Father so-and-so say, yeah, I haven't seen you in a long time. And they know they're going to experience that. But that pressure's there, because if it was gone and we didn't have them, that's a bad sign. That shows that we don't even have that anymore. So I actually look at these numbers and I look at this stuff and I don't get down about it. And in fact, I find it to be encouraging. It helps us to isolate issues that are better, that we can work on harder. And it helps us to appreciate and maybe recognize that it's not all doom and gloom at the churches we're not going to. We just assume that in a weird way. And if we actually look at it and say, well, I've experienced enough of those, that's a weird, illogical thing anyway, that based on my limited experience, I therefore project onto everybody. I mean, that's the phony. So I don't do that. But it's encouraging because it allows me to know better what I need to do for myself, for my family, and for those around me. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it does. Catholic guilt also just in general is a very useful
It's strong.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just very useful. The Midwest makes a lot of sense for Catholic guilt, I think. Just because I think it's something to do with that passive aggressive attitude. is it's basically you have a passive aggressive attitude with God.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
And I will say I have been to clown masses, and I have heard of, like, I have a friend who is from the St. Cloud Archdiocese, and they had a pizza mass where they had nuns in leotards doing liturgical dancing.
Yeah.
And right before communion, they brought out dominoes and said they were going to have a real meal together before they had the Eucharist together.
Oh,
Yes,
Oh,
I
that's
know.
way worse than the liturgical dancers I've seen.
Yes, me too. Me too. His story, I still remember the day he told me, and my jaw, I think it stayed on the ground for a solid 30 minutes. I was in pure disbelief. We're really good friends, and he is a very he's a very honest person. So I just like have no reason to not believe him. And just from some of the things that I've seen, I mean, I told you guys last night on my stream about being encouraged to go to black masses with women as priests, and I could get extra credit for that, and all kinds of stuff. But you're right, that's
Black
not the
masses with women priests.
or not black masses, but they're like
Yeah.
underground
Yeah, of course.
masses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
black masses are
yeah,
satanic.
you're right,
aren't they?
right. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
they are.
Mhm.
I
No,
was
I
like,
didn't mean black
that's
masses.
another level.
I meant, yeah, no, I meant to
Wow.
say underground.
It's like
They-
witches more
Yeah.
than priests. Witches.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
so I mean, there is
you
some
seem
of
like
that.
a nice
There's
lady.
definitely
We should go to a black mass together.
It does sound like.
so there is a culture for that here in certain areas.
Wait, black masses or
Both, probably.
Definitely
Would
both.
say
Yeah.
both. But
Yep.
I do think that that's just not the norm, and
Right.
there is a desire for that which is wholesome. And I think that's why, I mean, we're not the only family from our parish that drives at least 25 minutes to go to our parish or what have you. And we drive by several other Catholic churches, and are they like the worst Catholic churches ever? No, they just aren't the churches that we want to form our children in. And yeah, like we have a preference of sorts, I guess you could say, for whatever reason. But I do think it's more hopeful here than I think could be in other areas. Like I just think of certain parts of California or what have you. I mean, I look at some of those places and I say, well, thank God that that's not where I live.
Yeah.
Can I throw out maybe an unpopular hot take opinion about some?
Please do.
Of
We love
course.
those.
All right, yeah. So I think that I get flack because sometimes I say that a lot of people who call themselves trads are Moderna trads. And I think that one of the things, because I go to a parish that's TLM, right? But it's a diocesan parish. So they do the Missal of Paul VI every single day and every Sunday, but they also do the Latin Mass Mondays, Thursdays, Sundays. Okay.
That's a lot.
And they're, yeah. And the Paul VI Mass is facing Ad Orientem. It's all boy
Wow.
altar servers, Gregorian chant.
That's
It's absolutely,
ours.
yeah,
That's like
it's-
ours.
That's
Yeah.
impressive
yeah, it's absolutely
and
amazing.
wonderful.
It's awesome. And the school, my kids go to the school there, but see, we drive 15 minutes to get there. Our idea of the parish structure and a parish system is, with the advent of cars and roads and all of that, is toast. So that's, for one, it's not very trad to leave your diocese, or I mean, to leave. Sometimes they do that.
Your
They'll-
community.
your
But yeah.
community. But that, and we complain that we don't know our neighbors, right? Because that's trad to know your neighbors. But your neighbors traditionally would go to the parish. So we don't even do that. But more than that is that if we were to take people out and isolate them, send them to one place where that's where they want to go, they choose of themselves. I don't want to go up to the parish up the road. I don't want to raise my kids here. So I go over there. If, as is common, they often will point back to those places and say, they're just nothing but liberals over there. Us and our kids are not there. we used to be the people that weren't the liberals, but now we're gone. And then we point back at the group we just left and we mock them because they don't have conservatives and traditional people. And we basically given that area to them in order to have a separate place that is provided by cars. So what I've wondered is, like, movements, like I know a dude in Grand Rapids who said, I'm going to my parish and I'm going to begin doing this. I'm not saying it happens every time. This is praise report. This guy did this, dealt with it for a long time, actively engaged, talking to his priest, trying to figure out any way he can move and shake and do his thing. Well, now they're doing ad orientem every week. They're doing this. They're beginning to change even the stuff on the altar. That church was known, the priest recently refused to give communion. Well, he gave communion to the woman and told her afterward, you need to come and speak with me. It's a very popular, powerful woman in our town, a lesbian who's a judge, very powerful judge in our town.
I feel like I heard this story.
Yeah, that's right up. That's my parish. That's the one I'm saying I don't go to because I go to the Latin Mass instead of this guy. But that guy, and this is the last thing I'll say about this dude, I bring it up because a lot of people supported him in that time. The problem is that they had this awesome Mass. LifeSite was there, talked about it. I was there as a reporter talking about it. So I get there and the place is packed out supporting him because of this situation, right? After it was done, everybody's like, why aren't you interviewing more people? I said, I only want to interview one person. So I waited until the very end. I talked to a youth director at their church. And she's like, you wanted to talk to me? I said, I have one question. She's like, only one? I said, yeah, one. Did you know anybody here? No.
Oh my.
I said, so in other words, these people come, but then they're gone and they're not. I said, I'd love to do a follow-up sometime with you to find out if this is virtue signaling, that you're just showing up, but you're not really. That guy, he's going to be a priest tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. And he's not. There are many people there who that's their parish, including me. And yet she doesn't even know me. And so I thought about it and said, is there at least a conversation? I'm not saying it's a hardcore opinion or anything, because I'm not changing. But I'm saying, I wonder if it might be something that would be worth talking about, not here, but in a broader discussion about how to make positive changes within the church in the Midwest, the idea of revisiting the truly traditional structure known as the parish system.
Yeah, I have to, I don't mean to cut you off, Connor.
Go ahead.
So I live in a town that's named after St. Albert the Great. And then our adjacent town is St. Michael, named after the Archangel. It's a very Catholic community.
Yeah.
I have 2 Catholic churches within a mile of my house. And I would love to go and get involved in those communities. It would be so nice. I could literally walk to Mass whenever I wanted. But I can't in good conscience right now. And before we moved here, I was on the parish council. I was Susan from the parish council at my parish, except for like the young, more leaning traditionalist Susan. If Susan had a granddaughter who was like coming into the church or something. and my priest actually asked me to be the chair on our parish council because he knew where I was at on some things. And he was younger as well and was fresh out of the seminary. And so he really wanted to bring more traditionalism. But it was a challenge and we didn't make any progress whatsoever the entire time I was there. In fact, I remember one of our parish council members talking about, how do we bring more engagement, to Sunday Mass? How do we bring more people back? Maybe we need to kind of bring back some of the things we were doing in the 80s. Like, I don't know, what about like liturgical dancing? And I seriously, the look on my face, because I have no poker face, you guys. I just looked at him and I think I audibly gasped. And then I said, absolutely not. And then of course I apologized and I said, I'm not trying to shut down the conversation, but that's not even licit. Like you can't do that in the Mass. And that was a sad thing that happened in the 80s. And, it's just like, you're trying to bridge together different generations that have we've so malformed our understanding of the liturgy and of the Mass of our faith because we relegated the education of our children to the church, and parents didn't take that primary role even within the home. They weren't living the domestica ecclesia. They were expecting the church to do it the same way they expect the government to teach their children, the same way they expect the medical establishment to treat their children. They took no responsibility because they were promised that all these other institutions would do that for them. And look where we are today. Our kids have never been sicker. Our children have never been more illiterate, and our children have never known so little about the faith. And so,
And fat.
Mike,
I'm being dead serious that they're like really
Mhm.
fat children. Yeah.
Yes,
Not-
yes,
Yes.
It's
they
very
are.
disordered.
Obesity
It is.
is big.
It,
Yeah.
well, we shove them in front of screens because we don't want to
Yeah.
parent them. And
But-
yeah, so I get what you're saying. I just, and then of course the reverse of that, and I think we all feel this way. It's like your children, especially if they're young, they're learning by example and through experience. And so you don't want to put them in an environment where they have kids being let out during the gospel so that they can do craft time in the middle of mass for Sunday
Oh.
school, because
Yeah.
that's then they think mass is craft time. They don't
Mhm.
understand that it's heaven and earth meeting and that Christ is becoming truly present. So, I didn't want to be the mom that was like, sorry guys, you're not going to craft time right now.
So
This is more important.
the thing that guy wanted to do from the 80s,
Yeah.
did they do that?
No,
So you were successful because you were there.
I don't know that it was, no, it was my priest. For example, I will
Yeah.
say this. No, my priest, I don't know honestly why we had a parish council, because it was like we would talk about things, then he just ended up doing what he wanted to do anyway. So,
Yeah.
for example, except for if he got a lot of pushback from the old church ladies that would get their coffee. You know what I mean? Like he proposed at one point saying 3 prayers during the mass ad orientem. And there was so much pushback from these old ladies, he didn't do it.
Wow.
And he even brought up in one of our meetings that the young people wanted to bring back the communion rail. And I was like totally all for it. But I was the only one in the parish council that was super excited about the prospect of that. And he said to them, when he decided not to pray ad orientem, and when he decided not to bring back the communion rail, he said, I'm not doing these things now because I don't think our parish is ready for it. But I want you to know that this is what's coming because this is what the youth want. And he just left it there. And I'm a little bit more choleric than that. And as a matter of justice, I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
But it's his parish. And so, and I remember telling him he was also the same priest that was throwing Snickers bars around during a All Saints Mass at the school. Then, it's always like you have priests that are well intentioned, but they're not uniform and they're not. I don't know. It's like it's the battle of the human will, right? Like we're all striving to live out our convictions and be integrated. This is like the whole essence of my podcast, but I know it's so easy to like bring it back to that. And I feel like I do every time I talk about it, because this is why I started my podcast. Is like there's a huge gap between the intellect and the will. We can know what is true and we can persist in our basest desires despite knowing what is true. And so you have priests, but they feel constrained by the Susans of the parish council that want them to persist in whatever they're doing, whether it's outright like blasphemy in the church, or if it's just, slight heterodoxy,
Yeah.
And so I think there's an interesting balance where we're just at such an interesting time, I think, in the church, like in the country, in the world, and in the history of the church, because, and I have to wonder, have the liturgy wars been this fought out ever before, or is this like a new modern thing because of where we're at right now? I don't know. I'd love to hear from you guys. What do you?
Well,
what do you guys-
before we get to that, I want to piggyback off of what Jeremiah said, sort of about, bringing us back to sort of our parishes. And one of the things I recommend, at least, and I do this, and maybe if you're living near a TLM, then you don't have to do this, obviously. But if you have decent liturgies during the week, especially if you can't make a daily mass to a TLM daily mass, it is important to show up and go to daily masses and at least support. If you're not going to go Sunday at your parish, which I can understand because I also do the same thing, I think you should try and show up to Novus Ordo masses in the week, and then you can support priests that are trying to do what Angela's talking about is trying to be more traditionally minded because they want to do this. They know that
Yeah.
the youth want more of this, but they need support. Support is the most important thing a priest can have to because they don't want to be canceled. There's so many it's a growing list. There's a lot just in, I think, the Midwest, isn't it? The Midwest is kind of the prime one of the, like, at least where you hear about canceled priests the most. Do you guys think the same way? Do you think there's a lot of canceled priests in the Midwest, or is that just everywhere? But since we're around here, we hear more about the Midwest.
I think there's a decent amount. And I
Okay.
yeah, and I think that
I
they
think
get
it's,
canceled in part because of what we're talking about, because they know, right? They want that. But then the forces of, the Susan from Parish Council crowd, those people have a wicked bad force. And they're constantly coming at you, and they know how to play the politics of it. They write the letters to the bishop and all of that, but they
Mhm.
know how to do it. And they've been there. So they can say, I've been going here for 60 years and we never had those rails and all that. So they'll be able to do that. And it just pulls on the heartstrings of, Bishop, whoever. So
Can't
and
handle it.
But
in those
also the
churches,
money. They've been giving a lot of money for a long time, and their wills, they have the church in the will. It's like,
yes.
yeah, there's
that's
that component too.
but they don't
Yep.
have the same thing from the more traditional people, because the more traditional people have left. So they don't have even the people that
Right.
would be able to coordinate to even help. And that's why I said, like, I wonder if, the priest at the church I'm talking about, where it's the way it is, he's done that at multiple churches, and every church he went into was not that way. It was the opposite, and it got wicked bad. It was in disarray, and he'd come in and he would slowly do these things, incorporate them, and always do it in a way, like, even when the motu proprio came out and he was able to do the Latin mass without the bishop, when we went to him and told him, he said, well, I'm going to need you to do a petition. And we're like, you don't have to. And he goes, but you do. He said, I want you, because then I know I can go to the bishop and I don't have to. I could do it on my own. But he could also stop me for any other reason. He can come at me for anything. He's like, but if I go and I hand him the diligent work of the people in this church to say, this is what they want, I'm willing to learn it properly. I'm willing to do a sermon about Vatican II or the Novus Ordo or whatever before we do this, to indicate where our parish stands formally on these topics, so that there's no question ever. And he's done it. And now we are the fastest growing church in the diocese. And we've got this amazing school, classical education, kids learning Latin, being able to translate and speak it by the time they graduate, nuns in the church. And so, like, all of that, but it took time, and it took work from a cooperation from the people, especially homeschool families. That's how the school began. There's homeschool families that basically created this thing, as well as the Latin mass at the parish. So but I think there's a lot of people getting canceled, and I think we got to be smarter about how to handle that than just going on Twitter and balking away at it, because that's not helping.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, true. Social media doesn't really help anything on a sort of on a level that will help us. It always helps the wrong people, because the people that are scared of social media or scared of being disliked on social media, they're not scared of us. Usually, they're scared of the people that disagree with us, because we may not like it, but the people that disagree with us are often more, at least, or like have people that will sympathize with them on a much greater scale, even if they don't really care about the situation. And that's really we were talking about how, a lot of people identify as Catholic, but they're just not active. And that's kind of the same situation. Is if you're not really active in it, you're going to be more likely to agree with sort of whatever's going on in the modern world than you are with anybody who wants to change anything, if for sort of to go back to something different, or something that screams not modern. And really, I've always thought about this with the Midwest, is it seems like we mobile like the Catholic Church needs to be just mobilized in the Midwest. If it would mobilize, it would be very successful. And until until that happens, it will continue to decline. And so supporting priests and sort of making community on a small level, on a local level, is definitely the best way to move this forward. And if you can sort of, I bet there's a way that you can probably go to your TLM somewhere, 30 minutes or 40 minutes away, but then still have that community aspect where you reach out to all the people in your area, going to daily masses or rosary groups or something, really trying to reach out as a community member, because in a lot of Sunday masses, there are a lot of people there that you might forget that they go, that they go to that church. But at a daily mass, there's just not enough people, and you'll eventually know everybody that goes to a daily mass. So, and that can influence the priest a lot more. I feel like there's a trend of a lot more traditionally celebrated mass Novus Ordos on a daily mass schedule than there are on Sunday. Sundays where things go back to wacky.
Yeah, I love that point. Thanks for bringing that up, because I think we can get into that mindset of kind of like an us versus them, trads versus Novus Ordo. And I think a lot of us kind of give up on trying to relate to those people who are diehard Novus Ordites, I guess you could say, or like interacting with those churches, because we're so disheartened by just some of the stuff that we're seeing. So I love that. Not that I love necessarily a middle ground, but I love being able, or having that mindset of reaching out into those churches and establishing relationships, because that's how you really change hearts and minds. So thanks for that. Was great. Thank you.
I don't think it's a middle ground.
No, it's not. But I think I could see people saying it is, like you're lending credibility, for the people who say like the Novus Ordo is totally illicit and whatever, that you're lending credibility to the Novus Ordo. You know what I'm saying?
You're compromising yourself,
Yes,
kind of.
exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
no, I understand that. But there's a lot of priests out there that don't know how to be priests. And they sort of need help to get sort of the standard of what a priest, because seminary, it just doesn't seem like seminaries really teach how to be a priest, how to look like a priest, cassock, and just sort of how you carry yourself as a priest. And I feel like the only way that could be reversed is by befriending a priest. If people befriend priests, we influence each other. We make each other more like more like ourselves, more like each other, I guess. When we interact with them. I mean, the goal is, to only take the good and to improve where you can in the good areas. So if you can make friends with priests, if you can really support them generally, and, donations is an important thing. So if that's your only option, like if you don't have a TLM that you can even go to, you should be out there participating in your Novus Ordo parish. Otherwise, you're just never going to get what you want.
Yep.
It's just that's a danger. If you basically reject the validity of the Novus Ordo so far that you will be unwilling to go there, it will that is the potential to kill your soul, because you then don't have mass, and without mass the faith dies, unless it's like literally persecuted, like communists killing you can save your soul. Getting killed for the faith saves your soul, but they're not trying to kill you right now, and until then you need to go to mass.
Kansas is doing good, by the way. We have the
Yeah.
Minnesota, Michigan talk. Kansas is all right.
Well, not with the abortion.
No, not with the abortion, but
you
at
have to
least
unpack that though. You got to unpack that.
Yeah.
You're like, we're doing all right. We're better than Michigan, Minnesota.
no, we're not
Angela and
better. I
Jeremiah
don't think I don't think it's better. I think there's growth. There's definitely growth down here compared to where it's been. I mean, like 5-10 years ago, even. I think everybody's aware of the SSPX out at St. Mary's, about 2 hours west of where we're at here in Kansas City. But outside of that, I think there's only 2 FSSP parishes. One about 20 minutes away from us. That's where we go. And then the parish that we came from, when we moved to the TLM, they just started. It was Novus Ordo, and the priest just started doing TLM masses there, and it's been thriving, which has been great. We go back every once in a while still and say hi to the priest, because the priest he's an older guy, but it's just fire and brimstone homilies. And he was a convert from either, I want to say it was Anglicanism. He was in the Navy,
Yeah.
convert from Anglicanism, and he was a priest over there. So he was married and has like 6 kids. And when he became Catholic, they just were like, yeah, that's fine. You can do that too and be a priest.
Yeah.
So he, as a married man, going to confession to this guy is very interesting. And he used to be my spiritual director as well. So he's just like, there is no BS. You can't get anything past this guy. And always it's the husband's fault, especially in the confessional.
Rightly
yes.
so.
He knows. He knows. Yeah, he knows it.
Which, yeah, he knows it. So, it's all good. But yeah, it's like, there's, so, on the Kansas side, we got like 2 FSSP. There's in downtown, there's a ICKSP, which is also growing. And there's a lot of, at least, and my wife's from here, so she knows some guys who are now priests who are traditional at heart, but the parishes that they're at are Novus Ordo. And because they're younger guys, they're dealing with the older priest who has all the power. So they want to do more. They have the desire and the fire to do it, but it's just, well, the pastor isn't allowing me to do anything at this point. But those guys, sad to say it, are slowly dying off. That's
I mean, we're going to see a sea change in the church in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think, and I 100% believe in that. And I think that's at least down here in Kansas, just after everything you guys have been saying, especially with the, going to the parish and working within the parish, working with what you got and stuff. I'm happy that we are going to this TLM at this FSSP, and I'm happy that the parish we came from, I see that TLM growing, and we go back there and it is growing. And just getting involved in those parishes, getting involved in the faith down here, it's definitely growing. And I've seen that now within the past, I mean, what have we've been doing the TLM now for 3 years, I think, is when we finally red pilled and started doing all that stuff. But that's our coming from Novus Ordo into the TLM is a totally different beast of a subject that we can do another time if you want to. It's just it's even within the short amount of time that we've been doing this trad thing. And I personally, I've told my wife this too, and I've told other people, I feel weird even identifying as a trad. I don't know, just because of the negativity that comes with it.
The connotation.
And
Yeah.
and it may be that, maybe something else. Maybe I'm trad, maybe I'm not. I like the TLM, but I also help my wife out with a bunch of stuff around the house. So, I guess the cards are moved there. I don't know.
And I'm guessing you're wearing shorts right now, aren't you, Jake?
They're cargo shorts, aren't they?
But, yeah, okay. I'm wearing shorts. Okay. So
I knew
yeah,
it.
the cards revoked. I've
They're
been trying.
zip-offs, aren't
I
they?
have been trying to wear pants in the summertime down here in Kansas, but I just can't get. It's so doggone hot, and that's a personal struggle though to get over one day. But
I have a question.
yeah,
Basically, is it still shorts if basically shorts are pants for me?
Those are jorts.
that's
Yeah, it's a slide out question.
that's
Yeah.
well, nothing wrong with jorts in my opinion too.
Yeah,
Well, but, like,
Also,
They literally cover they're basically the length proportionally of pants
yeah.
I think there are circumstances where it can be.
because I'm short, really short. I'm like 4 feet.
I will
So
say
short.
there
Are
are.
you about 4 foot tall?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm 5'7", so I mean it's taller, but people are always like,
I'm
"Dude, you're
about
only-"
5'7". Yeah, we're like the same height.
I know, like that's, and it's weird because people are always like, "Oh, I thought you'd be like taller," and I'm like, I am on a horse, like I am on my trusty steed. I
Okay,
don't
there,
know.
Napoleon.
It is, it's true, man.
Oh, let's see your nunchuck skills.
Yeah.
Napoleon was Tom Cruise's height.
I will
Yeah.
say there are
5'6",
two, as
Yeah.
far as the Midwest and growing down here too, two really awesome places. Gower, Missouri. There is a traditional Benedictine convent with nuns.
Yeah, Benedictine College is pretty good.
We went to BC, and that also good. And I have also heard from people on the inside that they have started doing TLM masses at BC on the campus.
From
Which
people
is-
on the inside, is this like prison?
I wouldn't put
Yes.
it that way. I have connections. I know people. Yes, yes. But so the nuns out in Gower, we were invited to actually go to one of their masses here. Oh man, it had to be about 6 months ago, maybe in the spring. And they got a little side because it's a cloister, so they got this little side part for visitors, and there's like 3 or 4 benches for people to sit. And the acoustics and these nuns, there were like 60 nuns, and they were young. It wasn't like, there was a convent up in next to Benedictine College, and it was scholastics, Saint Scholastica. And I went to visit there because they needed people to help out the old women who are just frail walking around in the walkers. And you walk in and it looked like an old folks home because all these nuns, not a single one of them's in habit. You couldn't tell that they were nuns, and there was no faith. It was just dead. It was ridiculous. But we go to this place down in Gower, and they just built this place, and they've been doing it, and it's packed with all of these young nuns who are singing beautifully. It was like hearing the voices of the angels of heaven. It was so amazing. And they're growing, and it's expanding, and it's just beautiful. And the same thing, I know Oklahoma did we determine Oklahoma's Midwest? Is it? Yay, no, maybe
I
Southern.
don't think so.
You got Clear Creek Abbey down in
Yeah.
Oklahoma, and it's the same thing. I went down there this past, that was in the spring. It was in the spring because I went down and helped the monks burn a bunch of brush on their land. And so it was just guys out helping these monks out, and they let us go to mass. And you went to mass down in the crypt, and you had like the main mass up front with the majority of brothers and priests, but then they had 8 side altars, and the side altars had 1 bench. So it was only room for you and another person if you made it early enough in time to get that. So you basically had your own private mass while all these other masses were going on. Everything was silent. It was just amazing. And that one too, it's growing. It's beautiful, it's growing, and it's amazing. So like seeing stuff like that is hopeful for me. I got 2 boys. I got a 3rd boy on the way. And I'm like, what am I going to do as a dad of 3 boys who doesn't know what he's doing with his life, trying to get to heaven? How am I going to get these guys to be either good, holy Roman Catholic spouses or priests? What does the world need? What does the God need? And I'm failing epically every day. All right, we're getting into other things. What are we talking about? Moving on. I can't.
No, I want to
It's all
dig
good
more
though,
into
yeah.
your
Wait,
parenting
wait.
failures, please.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
use this
started
opportunity.
ranting. I started going off of it. That's where I
Okay.
see it. The church in the Midwest, just on the topic of it all. that's what I'm seeing down here in Kansas. You know, I got these nuns up in Gower, Missouri. We have these monks down in Clear Creek Abbey, Oklahoma. I can't remember the actual town that they're in, but we're smack dab in the middle of all of this here in Kansas. And that all just gives me hope. Just being able to see that, see those convents, see that monastery growing, and see these parishes down here. There's only a couple, you know, 2 FSSP, and then 1 Novus Ordo that happens to do a TLM, and then a couple of other really good Novus Ordos around us. And there's a ton of churches down here in Kansas City. But like I said, I can name on one hand just within the state what we have. But even with that, even though it is small, there's hope in seeing it grow. I'm excited to see what the future has to hold for it.
You guys, what do you guys think about the Byzantine stuff? Like, do you have increased numbers of them? Because we do. We have a Byzantine chapel because it's easy to talk just about the Western liturgy, right? But
Yeah.
we have a Ukrainian Catholic church, and totally awesome. And Jake, what you said reminded me because of married priests and stuff, and going to confession with one, you know, and it's interesting. But that church
We
was really
have-
small. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have there's a Greek Orthodox St. Dionysius, I think, which is 3 blocks away from our home. And
I meant like the Byzantine, like
Catholic.
like Catholic ones.
Gotcha. I
Yeah.
don't know if there's anything down here. There's a Byzantine Catholic church. I
Yeah.
just pulled up on maps,
That'd be one.
about a 40-minute drive from us. I don't know much about it. Although
Yeah,
I do know where this is located there's a really nice gun range out in that area.
Yeah.
Maybe when I'm out there next, I'll be able to go check it out.
Go to mass and then have fun.
Sunday, Monday.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
There
Byzantines,
we go.
though, in my area, they've been really encouraging because when they've been there for a while, it got real small. And so we just wanted to visit. And so we went to go visit. I wanted to show my kids because I have family members who are Eastern Orthodox, so they're not Catholic. And so it's always been a big deal to me anyway, the East and the West. I'm considering going to Byzantine seminary. And so I go in there and it's super small. And there was the first time we went, they canceled it because the priest who was coming in, he was driving from a ways away. And they were like, we don't even know if we can keep it open. It was in the paper. And so we decided we're going to start going like on, Saturday nights, because that's when they had it. So we'd go on Saturday nights as a family, and there were 4 kids, and so there's 6 of us plopping down in the pew. There was like 6 people all together in the building before we got this. We doubled the place just being, and over time, there would be families that come in and they were really excited to see our kids because they're like, oh, there's some kids here. And so they started coming more and more frequently. And then now, they're so big, it's standing room only at this point. It's packed out. If you don't get there, you don't get a seat. And they have these very festive meals afterward with everybody. And they do different celebrations. They sing happy birthday after everything's done. They'll sing happy birthday to certain parishioners and stuff. They have them come up and everything. And so we kind of learned a little bit how to do that with them. So, but it was encouraging because I'm seeing a rise in that. Some of it because of the coronavirus. I don't want to say the word. The thing
That's
with
the best version. That's the best version I've heard so far. Thank you.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I'm trying to avoid any flags. So but the thing in your arm. So like that, because of the restrictions, people were finding that the eparchies were not restricting theirs. And so they would be going to these. They continued to go. And so and they're sharing a spoon. I mean, you're using a spoon to do that. It's not individual wafer. So but they believed it. They were strong about it. And so people were finding out, oh my gosh, I can go there. It's an undisputed full communion with the church, like not even a question. So I can go there and still receive my sacraments and everything else. And they just fell in love with it. And so I'm excited to see the growth of Eastern Catholic churches as well. And I think that factoring them in that shows a love for tradition as well, and a
Yep.
Catholicity that sometimes is missing, I think, in the West.
Yeah, agreed. No, I went sort of at the end of, or sort of end of the things that kept us away from church. I went to receive, or to go to confession at a Ukrainian Catholic church, and it was just really interesting. First of all, the priest, I was the first Westerner to tell the priest that we are not supposed to eat meat on Fridays. He had not heard that from any of his any other Western friends, and which is, I thought, was interesting. But the point was that he was doing confessions and distributing communion at this, at sort of on demand, kind of, when things started to open up a little more, and
I've
that
said
was
too. I
and that
remember
was that was before masses in my area started up again. So this was sort of something that was it was definitely a better situation. Now, I also know that at one point a mayor banned intinction, basically banned one of their I think it was a Maronite church from being able to do intinction,
Mhm.
which is absolutely insane to me. To me, it's insane that they sort of went along with that, because that would not hold up in court. I don't think it would. I mean, it's Illinois, so I guess I don't know what holds up in court in Illinois.
That's
And
fair.
I'll just speak a little bit to Illinois. We have Cardinal Supage reigning supreme in Illinois, and it took a really long time for the dioceses to bring back to end the dispensation for going to Sunday masses. Like that only came back in some places only a couple months ago, which is kind of wild. But also, in the diocese I'm in, there's about 4 places you can go to the Latin Mass, and 2 of them are diocesan. And then the other 2 are FSSP, but one is where the FSSP travel to a parish, which is so it's basically it's sort of 3 diocesan with the FSSP, and that diocesan parish is now starting to do more Latin masses by themselves, like for the I think it's for the, what is it when a church is made or set up? What is that called? When like a individual parish,
Consecration,
is it consecration?
Dedication.
dedication.
Dedication. Yeah, it's for the anniversary of the dedication of the church. They're doing a solemn high mass, which is really cool.
Nice.
Which, yeah. So there are bright spots in my diocese, but then in Chicago, you have the Institute. I think they've been closed. I've only seen things on the internet about that, and I haven't heard anything. Sort of, I haven't seen anything, but that doesn't mean it's. And then the canons regular of St. John Cantius have also been limited on how many times they can celebrate the Latin Mass. And I'm pretty sure also the Novus Ordos have been basically forced to be less traditional, which is wild. Also, I think Supage banned a priest from saying this St. Michael prayer at the end of Mass. So that one was weird. And if you cross Supage, you get sent to one of the Dakotas. I'm pretty sure there was one priest who burned a special flag of a
I
Yes,
remember
yeah.
that. I was
Yeah, I
working for
remember.
LifeSite when we were covering that story.
yeah, and I believe he had been molested.
He had, yeah.
So
And
by a man. So
but that
Yeah.
flag, did you remember the backstory on how that flag even got into the parish?
Right.
The priest that was there beforehand was found dead in the rectory because
Yeah.
he was attached to a sex machine
Yeah.
with mirrors all over the place. It's just
Oh my.
atrocious.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. It was
Anyways,
very demonic.
So you
yeah.
know Steve Cox then, don't you, Angel?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend. Okay. Sorry for that intrusion. I didn't know you were with LifeSite ever, so you bring this up, and I'm like, dang, girl. Okay, yeah.
I was doing
That's awesome.
fundraising with their major donors. Yeah, I was kind of behind the scenes at Life Site. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in another diocese, the supage basically took out from under, like, or forced upon them the same rules similarly to the canons, because the canons had priests in this diocese. So they had to follow the Chicago rules, even though they were in a different diocese. So that was basically supage is trying to find every route into all the surrounding dioceses to basically control them to follow whatever he wants. And that's really the setup of Illinois at the moment. You know, there's some sort of bishops that are not going along with that as much. And then there are bishops that are sort of wanting to be like him. They're like little kids wanting, I want to be like Cardinal Supage. I want to be like Cardinal Supage. They want to be in his good graces for some reason. Yeah. And so there's definitely more parishes that are becoming more traditional too, regarding Novus Ordos, just with younger priests. So a lot of this stuff is pretty similar. And, you know, it makes sense why we're talking about the Midwest as a group, because we are really seeing a very similar trend. Maybe that's happening in a lot of other places, but, you know, Jeremiah pointed out that the Midwest is, you know, there's a lot of Catholics that identify as Catholics in the Midwest. So it is a very important place to see where the general American Catholic sits, you know, in this sort of discussion.
I'm glad you brought
Just
up
wish
the
more would have
idea.
came out and voted on August 2nd. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What were you saying, Jeremiah?
Yeah, sorry. I didn't
Well,
hear.
no, I agree with Jake actually, man. Maybe I would have won the election contest that I was in. I did not win.
Wait, you were in an election contest?
Yeah, dude. Well, long story short, I had no interest in running for office, but a lot of people know me around here, and they were like, "Look, you're in an area you'd lose, but there's a kind of thing that if you run, you get to the general. There's things that happen also with the party apparatus that would be beneficial." And so they convinced me on the last day. I went in, put my name in, and it was 1 hour left, and I was not contested. I was like, "All right, dude, this is great. I don't really have to do much." And then the next day, they're like, "Dude, somebody was a worse procrastinator than you." And like they're like on real Kaiser time. So I had a guy. Now I met him, and we don't see eye to eye on everything. But the truth is, it was obvious that he was going to spend money. He wanted to get signs. He wanted to do. There's a lot of things, and he did it. And I told my wife, I said, I'd feel badly if I actually won. I also feel badly if I spent any money. I had no interest in doing this, and I'm like, but I also would feel badly if I walked out with like 10% of the vote. I'd be like, I'm better than that. Dude, I got 45% of the vote. And the only campaigning I ever did was 1 hour before the polls closed. I posted something on Facebook telling people, hey, you know, obviously I hope you vote for me, but either way, it's a win-win because I think this is a good guy. And that's all that's the only, and I filled out a questionnaire from the Women's League of Voters or something, League of Women Voters.
Sounds dangerous.
Believe me, every red flag was like up right away. I know. And the local newspaper called to tell me, they're like, we sent this to you and you did not reply. And I'm like, okay. So I get on there and it was awesome. It was, what is your background that leads you to believe you're qualified? Number 2, what's your strong suit? What do you think are your strengths? Number 3, what are your weaknesses? What would you believe would be a weak spot for you? And I thought that's actually awesome. And I would love to talk about that. In fact, even admitting those things that would be difficult. And so, yeah, it would have been awesome, man. Cause I only lost by like 100 something votes or whatever. I'm like, dude, yeah.
You should have made 2 Facebook posts.
Yeah, 2 Facebook posts I would have won. But coming out with 45% of the vote it was county commissioner. So 45% of the vote, you know, not doing anything. And I was out of town. We actually got back to Grand Rapids to vote at 7:58. It closes at 8. We were
Wow.
running into the building. We're like racing because we were in St. Louis for vacation. We're running and we get in there and he's like, "You made it with 2 minutes to spare." And I'm thinking, I'm glad because I'm on the ballot. Like if I'm not showing up. So I was Kaiser timing that, but back to what you were saying. So like you brought up something that is, I think, really important. And that is that, like take the bubble mass. Did you guys see that where they were doing the big bubble thing and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you notice the crowd, the people there?
They're all old.
They're all very
people.
old.
Very,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I said that you want to respect your elders, right? I think we kind of dog it too hard sometimes to think, and there's a tension in America, especially with that. However, we're not born blind in this case. We can see what we're seeing, and we're not going, Mino, see this. We all know these are very old people. And this kind of thing, you can just tell. It's like there's a generation of people. And it was during the heyday of like Hulkamania and, this idea of like everything new and the idea of seeker sensitivity. And seeker sensitivity was this Protestant notion from a very popular Willow Creek, actually, but isn't that near Chicago? Anyway, it used to be the biggest church, I think, in
Probably.
America.
Yeah, I think it is.
It used to be the biggest until like Saddleback and stuff like that. So, but their idea was we need to make it as acceptable to the outsiders so that when they come in, that's why you got the coffee shops and the music or the movie theater seating and all that, and the music that's up there with with the lights and all that. That's why you have Contemporevent, right? Like the parody Contemporevent. That's why you've got that. So Robert knows. So
I looked it up because of you.
yeah, Contemporevent. Yeah. So like that's what that's about. Well, that affected even Catholics. They thought, well, this is going to get the youngsters in. And the fact is they were just wrong. And it didn't get the youngsters in. And they watched as they tried and tried. I think even sometimes in good faith, like I don't think that when they do that, the bubble mass, for example, that guy actually goes on the streets, by the way, and preaches to people like on the streets. He'll go out there and do street evangelization. The dude who does that. I think
Interesting.
he's a genuine guy, but he's just oblivious and he thinks that this is legit. I don't think he's like, I'm going to desecrate the mass by making bubbles. Like I don't take that position.
Yeah.
But I think he sincerely believes that. And that's the world he grew up in, the world he understands. But that's been challenged because we've seen it. People have walked away and they're excited now about finding roots because they don't have any. Even in society, they're taught to hate themselves and their history and their people and their language and their traditions. And so they're rootless. And yet, where do they find it? Well, they find it in church. Now they're trying to connect themselves to the democracy of the dead that gives them a purpose and says, I'm not just here in the moment doing my thing for the temporary moment in this nihilistic hellscape, but instead I'm part of something that goes a long way back that gives meaning and purpose in my life and direction for not only me, but for my children and children's children. And people are finding that in more traditional expressions of the mass.
Mhm.
And so I think that's encouraging. And, I hope I don't want to be a cynic and say, well, one day they'll all die. But we also know that we all one day will die.
Yep.
Memento mori.
Memento mori. So
Mhm.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry I said so long. Oh my
My
gosh.
phone.
Come on.
That's
My
great.
phone. Thank you
Ah.
for Veritu's Catholic Chris Lewis. He's got great stuff.
It's
Veritus.
Veritus.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you got to tell us where you got that.
Yeah. His Etsy shop right there. I actually
Yep.
have that sticker on our van too, along
Yeah.
with all of the
That's great.
Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of
That's
Mary. Judas
amazing.
Heart
I'm
of
wearing
Saint
one of his
Joseph.
shirts right now.
Ah,
Bro.
I was wearing mine last night. Yeah.
it makes shout out. It makes me just think of Tridentine Brewing. So
Yeah.
shout out to
Oh
Trevor.
yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've all got our
Yeah.
Mine's in a
signs.
box, still packed
Yeah.
up for moving, but
Rob's got to put that up.
Rob, you guys moved?
yeah, just 20 minutes from Ely to Babbitt.
Bro, why don't you tell me these things? I thought we were close.
Would you have come up and help? Because if not, there's no point.
Yeah, if you would have offered, I would love to make that 11-hour trip up to Ely.
I'm surprised
Offered?
my brother didn't tell you, complain to you about how bad it was.
Now your bro and I talk infrequently nowadays.
Yeah. it happens.
Okay.
It happens.
Well, so yeah, I think we're coming near the end. I think we should wrap things up. Any final anything anybody wants to add about the Midwestern Church?
I guess I would just say, I mean, it's stuff like this that gives me hope. You know, the fact that I don't, you know, I know Twitter is what it is, but you know, I've met all of you guys apart from Jake, who I grew up next to. I've met all of you guys on there. I've met a ton of people on there, and for all the bad it has, there's a lot of good, and that's such a small section of what is, you know, really going on with people generally our age in the church. And I don't know, it gives me a lot of hope, especially as our age group is able to have more influence in the church. So
And I want to even just kind of piggybacking off of that, you know, as I don't know how to put this, maybe like an outsider position, because, you know, Connor, you got Plotlines, Jeremiah, you got Paleocrat and Meaning Catholic, all this stuff. Angela, you got Integrated. Rob, you got that thing with Anthony that I don't know what you guys do.
That
But
like,
like,
that stupid acronym.
Something.
It's something or other, yeah.
Yeah.
but like for me, I'm like, I'm just a guy. I'm just a dude
You're
sitting
Jake
here.
from Jake.
Yeah, I'm Jake
Yeah.
from Jake, and
You're
I'm just
Jake from
like,
State Farm.
I have gotten that my whole life since that first commercial.
Uh,
But like for me too, I'm like, it's one, I can't thank you guys enough for giving me just an opportunity to just be present and talk and share stuff. But still that hope that we all need, that hope that's integrated with our faith and who we are as Catholics, seeing you guys out there and evangelizing, talking, doing what you can with what you've been given gives me hope. You know, I'm not one to go off and start my own podcast thing. People have asked me to do something or like be one of those guys. My wife says, you got a good voice. Maybe you could do like an audiobook or something. Have you just thought of that?
Just
Yeah.
don't do your stupid voices.
Oh,
Please do those.
Please do them.
No, please do
Do
them.
not listen to Robert.
I've been hearing
Don't
them
not
since he was
listen
like
to it.
5 years old.
If I ever publish a novel, maybe you'll have to
publish a novel.
You'll have to
Could
do
you
the
please read us
audiobook
an
part.
excerpt?
I have a newspaper here too because you know, I'm an old guy and I actually do. I get a
We
newspaper
should
and I
get you
like
some,
reading the funnies and I like doing my crossword and I like doing my Sudoku. And if a kid doggone comes in here and takes my paper away, then scribbles all over the part that I just want to see,
then you'll
it
just
just
have to
rubs me
deal
the
with
wrong
it.
way. I do just have to deal with it. I just have to wait another week though. But yes, ultimately, thank you for the opportunity, guys. And I appreciate being able to just, even in these small ways, be a part of something like this.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, Jake. And for people won't know, but you're a big part of why this happened, or why this was able to happen. Angela, anything?
I mean, no. I just, yeah. I have
No.
nothing else to add, but thanks for letting me join you tonight. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
No problem. Jeremiah?
Yeah. I think that it's been exciting to see what we all kind of know about the youthfulness of tradition. That there's, in our day and age, there's a youthful expression of it, that young people are connecting with it. And, you know, I don't know everybody's age here, but I can say that it's nice to see that it's kind of a mid-range demo here, right?
Mhm.
And that we're kind of in between, situated nicely, in fact, between a lot of boomers and a lot of the young, earlier millennials, like the Zoomer groups. And to say,
I'm a Zoomer.
you're a Zoomer. Well, you're leading the charge, man. So look at this. So it's a good mix then,
Yeah.
right? I'm the old guy in the group. That's okay. But like the thing is to me, that's encouraging. And I say, because that means there's longevity. It's not just that we're here for the long haul, right? We're not coming in like a deathbed conversion to more traditional understandings of the faith and expressions of the liturgy. We're coming earlier on, and it's defining who we are in our lives, our vocations, and everything else. And I look also, and I'll just say this: it's not just this; it's that we are of the age where people have families, right?
Yep.
And when you embrace this, you have lots of kids. There's a tendency in traditionalism to make some babies. And so I think tonight was a great example because Angela's baby is definitely the star, in my opinion. With that
Definitely.
hairdo, it was awesome to
There's
see.
one in the
this-
background too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
that-
he passed out.
He's
Passed
done.
out.
It's
Yeah.
so cute.
But he was just
Fantastic.
rocking there, right? He was just rocking that. He just chilled out like I'm on stream with my mom. And
It's
like
fine.
but it was awesome just to that moment thinking here's some guys, people, different perspectives, different places, putting ourselves out there, trying to live the faith and advance the ideas of this to really think through critical things and evaluate where we are. And right there is a mother, and she's holding a baby, and she's just kind of doing this beautiful baby. And I thought, what an awesome image, the whole snapshot of that. I'm like, that's hopeful to me. That's it's something that goes on beyond our lifespan, and it's something
Well,
that's transgenerational.
It's our legacy. Yeah.
Yes.
I
And
mean,
these
two
are
of
like
two of you
little
guys
Christmas
are
trees.
expecting, right?
Oh yeah, we just found out last week, and so
Congrats, man. That's
So
awesome.
excited for you
yeah,
Congrats.
thank
guys.
you. Yes, thank you.
We're due in October.
Yeah, dude. Congratulations with that, buddy. Yeah.
Oh,
And so it took me a little bit not entirely by surprise, you know what I'm saying? But like at the same time, it was one of those I wasn't anticipating that. Yeah, I mean, obviously I
Right.
took part, right? So like I asked my wife because my wife was being all like sneaky. She was all being sneaky. She went to like Walgreens and she bought a test, and she didn't tell me. So she went in and took it, and then she came back in and she just like sat there and had this grin on her face, like all cheesy. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, what's so funny? And she's like, like this. And I'm like, did I do something? That's what I said.
Kinda.
Did I?
That's what she said. She's like, yeah, you did. I'm like, oh, what's this? And she's like, bum, bum, bum.
You're like, what? You're positive for COVID?
No, yeah. Yeah, I'm apparently a super spreader. So anyway, but yeah, and they say it spreads most in the home like this, and so that's a good thing. We're definitely loving the Lord, loving family, and loving these vocations and connecting with other people who are doing the same thing. And it's reason to be hopeful because we are surrounded by more than enough reasons to be down and out every single day and to be cynical. But to see groups like this and to know that, Connor, what you're doing, what everyone else here is doing, and I'll say one more thing about Angela, that ladies are getting involved in this. I know that there are segments of the Catholic population within traddom that is very obnoxious about this, and
Yeah.
they call them e-girls and everything, accuse guys who follow their stuff as being simps. I think it's obnoxious, and I think it's un-Catholic. God, one of the first things, it is not good that man is alone. And the idea that it's good that in this drive to make change, that it's men who are just alone, I say, whap, whap, whap. I say, you don't understand what we need. So I'm grateful that there are people like Angela putting herself out there in this way to talk about that disconnect of the mind and the will and how we can get back and bringing that perspective. And so hopeful. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, just listening to you, Jeremiah, makes me really hopeful. So thank you for that. And really, it's an honor to have all of you guys on the episode tonight and for the first live stream ever on Plotlines, and to get the kinks out of the way. So it's really a pleasure to have all of you, and you guys are absolutely welcome back anytime you want to come on. I'm going to plug some things last moment. I mean, there aren't a ton of people watching right now, but it will be up later. It will be up after live and stuff like that. So people will be able to see it. So we brought up Clear Creek Abbey. I've interviewed Dr. Jared Stout, who is was a oblate of Clear Creek Abbey. And I interviewed him about beer, and I've interviewed him about catechesis, and he has a lot of great stuff to talk about. I even pushed him into talking about the liturgy, which I don't think he wanted to talk about necessarily, but he was a good sport about it. I also recently interviewed Bishop Strickland, and that was a really interesting experience. And he's a really impressive bishop, and just a great voice to have on the small sort of Texas bishop speaking out on such a wide into a wide world. And then so this is actually the third this is the third episode in a series I'm doing on sort of regional looking at the regions of the Catholic Church. And I started with England with Gavin Ashenden, and then I went on. Oh no, this is the fourth actually. Yeah, and then I sort of U.S. generally with Bishop Strickland, and then I also did Ireland with Robert Nugent from De Crevy, Determined to be Catholic. His channel's really good, really interesting. And now Midwest, and I'll hopefully get to all, as many regions as I can manage to get guests to discuss, because as a Midwesterner myself, I can only, speak for the Midwestern side. So thank you all for helping me to do this and to learn more and to continue to grow in my faith journey. And I hope you guys all had a great time in the chat and just being on discussing these types of things. Anything else? Last chance.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
No problem.
Thanks for having us, Connor.
Yes, thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Anyways, thank you for listening, and have a great night. Bye. Okay.